Hello. So in this video I'm going to talk to you about Marina Carr's play Phaedra Backwards in her collection Marina Carr Plays 3. So Phaedra Backwards, as you might guess, is an adaptation of the Phaedra and Hippolytus story, which goes back to ancient Greek mythology. So I'll start by saying there are three major versions of the Hippolytus story. There's the version by Euripides, which is called Hippolytus. And then there's a Roman version by Seneca, which is called Phaedra. Then there's a French classical version by Jean Racine called Phaedra as well. And so what Carr does is she draws on all three of these sources, as well as some other mythological material, like Phaedra's background. And she creates a new play that uses a sort of postmodern shuffling of temporalities to break down boundaries, or to break down borders, which is a really interesting approach when we think about how mythology works, because mythology is not set in stone. Mythology, every time it's retold, every time it's reimagined, changes. And so for me, what Carr does that's so interesting in Phaedra Backwards is she sort of enacts that breaking down of stability. She enacts that sort of erosion of solidity. So Carr's play, it's not exactly backwards, despite what the title suggests. It jumps back and forth through the timeline of the mythological story. So in scene 1, we have Theseus and Phaedra, and it begins when Theseus says, "Went over the cliff." Phaedra, "The cliff?" Theseus, "But I could hear it in her voice." Phaedra, "What?" Theseus, "She enjoyed saying it." Phaedra, "He went over the cliff." Theseus, "She was breathless telling me." Phaedra, "Well, it is sort of dramatic." Theseus, "But I'm his father." Phaedra, "Was it steep?" Theseus, "I've never heard of a shallow cliff." Phaedra, "Some women love giving dramatic news." Theseus, "She sounded like she was talking to her lover." Phaedra, "Was there a bull in the field?" Theseus, "You and your bulls." Phaedra, "A white bull with a garland of windflowers on his horns." Theseus, "Sounds like an accident." Phaedra, "Don't be ridiculous." Theseus, "He had everything to live for." Phaedra, "Unless the bull pucked him off with his horns, but even that wouldn't be an accident. Or maybe, just maybe, the sea came up to meet him, the waves caught hold of his hair, but that's the stuff of lyrics. We're past the lyrical, but was he?" So, sorry, my cat was shuffling around in some paper bags we keep for recycling. So, the Carr's play starts at the end of the myth cycle, where Hippolytus has already been killed going over the cliff, which happens at the end of the Hippolytus or Phaedra plays in Euripides, Seneca, and Racine. We've also got this meta-theatrical, meta-mythical component here. We have, for instance, Phaedra's line, "Some women love giving dramatic news." So we've got this evocation of theater and performance. She also says, "Unless the bull pucked him off with his horns, but even that wouldn't be an accident. Or maybe, just maybe, the sea came up to meet him, the waves caught hold of his hair, but that's the stuff of lyrics." So this is the meta-mythical reference. The reference to the lyrical here is an evocation of the traditional structure of Greek and Roman myth, which was often told through poetry, through verse. So we've got that. Again, so those are crucial components because they do keep coming up, those meta-mythical, meta-theatrical references. But structurally, it's also interesting because, again, we start with the end of the myth, and then in scene 2, we go to Pasiphae. Now, Pasiphae is not in Euripides, Seneca, or Racine. Pasiphae is actually earlier in the myth structure. She is Phaedra's mother. But the bit that we go to is actually pre-Phaedra. So Pasiphae. King Minos received from Poseidon a white bull, which he was supposed to sacrifice. He did not sacrifice it. He sacrificed a shittier bull that Poseidon was not pleased with. He kept the white bull for himself. As a vengeance, the gods made Pasiphae fall in love with this bull. She has the inventor Daedalus build her a cow suit, basically, so that she can get this bull to have sex with her, which she does, and the Minotaur is born. So we're in scene 2, we actually go back to the stage of the myth where Pasiphae has gotten the inventor to create her this bull costume, and we see him show her how to get into it and how it's going to work and things like this. So we're jumping backward and forward in the mythical structure here. And again, this is about breaking down borders between reality and history, breaking down borders, temporal borders, the sort of theory that time is linear and goes only in one direction. This is about breaking down the distinction between myth and reality, myth and psychology, because we also have the Minotaur as sort of archetypal figure, a bull figure who plays on these sort of Jungian psychological tropes of human animality. And in fact, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it just at the moment. That's my cat Frank, by the way. But there's actually a really interesting moment where Theseus is yelling at his son. Yeah, okay, I've got it here. So he's yelling at Hippolytus for not having achieved anything. And Hippolytus says, "What were you at 20? Theseus says, "At 20 I had you. At 20 I'd made my first million. At 20 I wrestled a bull to the ground." So here we have Theseus as the one who conquers the bull, which of course he did. In mythology, Theseus is the one who kills the Minotaur and sort of liberates the people. But then, a little bit later, Theseus says, "If you had fucked her and repented," that's Phaedra, his wife, Hippolytus' stepmother, "if you had fucked her and repented, I would have forgiven it. But this girly dithering, I need to see some shadow of the young bull in you. some shade of the bull slayer that came down from me. So this is a really fascinating line in terms of breaking down boundaries, because here we have even the collapse of the distinction between different identities. Theseus is both the bull and the bull slayer. He's both the minotaur and the murderer of the minotaur. And so that's really the sort of central idea, this central theme of Phaedra Backwards, is about breaking down distinctions so that we can see the flux, the flow, etc., of existence, of psychology, of mythology.